Utah Foundation is a nonprofit, nonpartisan public policy research organization that has been operating in Utah for the last 75 years. Utah Foundation's April 2020 report, The Justice Gap, Addressing the Unmet Legal Needs in Lower-Income Utahns, focuses on the roughly 26% of Utah's population living at or below 200% of the federal poverty line. This presentation will start off with a methodology. This will help us understand some of the things that we'll find in the full report. We'll also learn about how many legal needs lower-income households have and the most common legal needs. For instance, we'll see that 57% of households have one or more need, and the most common ones are financial, employment, and health. We'll talk about the severity of legal needs. For instance, we'll see that households that have a domestic violence legal need are most impacted by that need. We'll talk about self-representation and see that most people aren't represented by an attorney, particularly for financial and eviction cases. We'll see where people get help from legal needs service organizations, online and elsewhere. And we'll talk about the type of help people get from legal services organizations, from information and referral to brief advice to full representation. We'll also talk a bit about information and referrals in particular, and we'll learn about the fact that family law and immigration top the list. We'll talk about the gap between services and needs. And lastly, we'll look at some county differences. In terms of methodology, Utah Foundation drew heavily from the U.S. Census Bureau's American Community Survey for data for the report. And Utah Foundation also analyzed United Way's of Salt Lake's 211 information and referral service data. We also received a lot of help from Kai Wilson as a consultant for the report, and received some great data from David McNeil. We included in the report short stories about legal needs provided by legal service organizations. These were also collected by Kai Wilson. And really the backbone of the report is a survey created by Utah Foundation. This survey asks respondents about legal problems in the past 12 months for the respondents themselves and anyone else in their households. Lighthouse Research administered the random sample survey. We received about 900 responses from lower-income Utahns, both online and on the phone. And Utah Foundation administered another online-only survey. This was it went out to 211 information and referral service clients. And from that survey, received about 832 responses. Some of those were in English, some were in Spanish. And we received mostly lower income respondent surveys, but we also received some higher income respondent surveys. The report has numerous findings. One of the findings is that most lower income households have at least one civil legal need issue type, and nearly a quarter of households have 3 or more issue types. You'll see here 43% have no issue types. We also found that financial legal needs are clearly the biggest issue for lower income households. That's followed by employment and healthcare legal needs. Financial legal needs at 26%, employment at 21%, health at 20%. The report finds that most Utahns with financial legal issues had problems with a collection agency or with fraud. About a third had those collections issues. About a third were dealing with fraud and scams. And the other portion was a whole host of different items. In terms of employment-related legal issues, being forced to work overtime and bad shifts is by far the most common complaint. That bad shifts was 45%. Another big complaint was that people were not getting their wages, either regular pay or overtime pay. That was nearly a quarter of the folks. The report finds that most respondents with a health-related legal need issue indicated that they had been charged too much for medical services. That was about half of the group. And the rest of it was split up between being unfairly denied coverage and a whole host of smaller issues. This again is the list of legal needs, and it shows the percentage of households that are experiencing each legal need. And you'll see that most houses don't have a problem, fortunately, with domestic violence. However, some needs may be affecting households disproportionately hard. So why domestic violence is down here on the list. Domestic violence is as may be expected, at the top of the list of civil legal needs by how much they affect the household. You see here that 100% of households that reported a domestic violence issue said that it was severe, though other situations like rental, civil legal needs, education, discrimination, family, health, they all have a large impact on people's households. Under the coronavirus outbreak, certain of these items will become much more prevalent and more acute. Again, domestic violence, we may see an increase there, but Utah may also see more civil legal needs issues related to finances, employment, benefits, landlord-tenant, and many other issues. The report finds that most respondents in Utah are self-represented in civil cases. With the 62,000 debt collection cases, almost none of the respondents or defendants had representation, and most respondents do not have representation for eviction cases. This is vastly unbalanced when considering that almost all of the petitioners or plaintiffs are represented. Utah Foundation found from the random sample survey respondents who received legal aid help, they were most likely to get help from social or human service agencies, online or through paid attorneys. The report also found that legal services vary widely by the number and type of support. You see here that family law issues receive the most help from legal service agencies. Immigration is not far behind, though domestic violence and other legal services, housing, public benefits, they receive quite a bit of help. One thing that you'll notice here is that the type of help is very different, where information and referral is the primary type of help that people receive in terms of family law issues, whereas under immigration issues, it is a bit more split between representation and legal advice and brief service from attorneys. Renter and family legal needs are the top legal information and referral issues for the largest information and referral organization in the state. That organization is 211, and you'll see here that landlord-tenant dispute resolution is about a third of those people who call. For family issues such as child custody, divorce, and child support, that's over a quarter of those people who call. And that's followed by immigration, domestic violence, employment discrimination assistance, and others. So of those two top lists, most renters with a housing problem had an issue with a landlord not providing a safe, clean place to live where everything worked. You'll see that for 50% of renters with housing issues, that shoddy living condition was the big problem. Over a third had an issue being threatened with eviction. The report found that the most common family law legal issue is related to problems collecting child support and alimony. That's nearly 4 out of 10 people. Almost a third had problems with child custody, and over a quarter had or needed divorce or legal separation. The report found that large legal need gaps exist between the services provided and the number of potential legal problems households experience. You see here that the assistance provided to lower-income Utahns by legal service providers was around 42,000 people, while the estimated need was up around 240,000 people. That leaves a legal need gap of nearly 200,000 in Utah alone. The report found that Utah counties vary widely by their proportion of lower-income residents. You'll see here that counties like Salt Lake have below the average in terms of the percent of individuals under 200% of the federal poverty line, while some counties like Paiute and San Juan County have nearly 50% of people living under 200% of the federal poverty line. The report also shows that there's a wide range of attorney availability among Utah counties, due in large part to rurality. You see here that Paiute County has no attorneys. Beaver County only has one attorney for every 3,000 or so folks. But in counties like Salt Lake, there's one attorney for every 203 residents. So More than 2/3 of Utahns lower-income survey respondents indicated that they could not afford a lawyer if they needed one. Accordingly, helping overcome the legal needs gap could take more low and pro bono work by attorneys, more social and human service agency support and funding, either from private or public sources. While the call to close the gap has been sounded, there is still a long way to go. Utah Foundation thanks the Utah Bar Foundation for providing support for this project.